Hello there, Wastecasters. Thanks for tuning in again, and please don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. I'm going to have a particularly long one today, and it's basically about as close as you can get in the civilian intel sphere to explain anti-gravitics, and another word which sounds a bit like anti-gravitics, which is gravitoelectronics, I think. And it's totally legit. You can fucking research it and shit. Really good. So I'll start reading it because it's going to be a long video. So make yourself a cup of tea, you know, or fucking crack pipe, whatever you want to do. And, you know, you can stop at any time you want. But, like, if you do listen to me read the whole thing, you'll be like, whoa, that's fucking deep, man. I better get some goggles. Anyway, I'll find it for you. I've put it in liquid mode in Adobe. The guy's got a weird name, right? But this is how it goes. So, the Pokletnov effect, an exhaustive analysis of superconducting gravitational anomalies between 92 and 2025. His introduction, the intersection of quantum materials and general relativity. So, the quest to manipulate gravitational fields, often dismissed as the province of science fiction, remains one of the holy grails of advanced propulsion physics. Since the formulation of general relativity by Albert Einstein in 1915, gravity has been understood as a geometric property of space-time, rigid and largely immune to manipulation by electromagnetic means at energy scales accessible to human engineering. The coupling constant between gravity and electromagnetism, characterised by the factor of some bollocks I don't know because I never did maths GCSE. I got a D in maths. So infinitesimally small that standard physics predicts no measurable interaction between laboratory magnetic fields and local gravity. However, in 1992, this paradigm was challenged by an anomalous observation reported by Eugene Pokletnov, a Russian materials scientist working at the Tampere University of Technology in Finland. Pokletnov claimed to have observed a gravity shielding effect, reduction in the weight of objects placed above a rotating high temperature superconducting ceramic disc. This report, initially obscure, ignited a 3-decade-long odyssey of theoretical debate, clandestine government research and controversial experimentation that continues to the present day, with new claims emerging just last year. This report provides a comprehensive expert-level analysis of the Pokletnov effect. Yes, it's fucking AI slop, and it's very interesting at that. So, where was I? Yeah, the broader field of superconductor-based gravity modification examines the specific material science of 1992 experiments. The theoretical models proposed to explain the anomalies ranging from gravitomagnetism, as I said at the beginning, to quantum vacuum fluctuations, the history of replication attempts by NASA and the European Space Agency, and the evolution of technology into impulse gravity generators and terahertz frequency devices. So the analysis synthesizes peer-reviewed and direct accounts from the principal investigators to evaluate scientific standing of these radical claims. So you've got the first bit here, the context of high temperature superconductivity. So to understand the Pokletnov effect, one must first contextualize the materials involved. The discovery of high temperature superconductivity in cuprate ceramics like yttrium, barium, copper oxide in 1986, the year I was born, revolutionized condensed matter physics. Unlike classical metallic superconductors, which require liquid helium temperatures, operate at liquid nitrogen temperatures, and exhibit complex internal structures. Type 2 superconductors allow for magnetic flux to penetrate their bulk in the form of what they call quantized flux tubes or vortices. So when these materials are rotated, or when there are alternating currents introduced within them, the dynamics of these vortices and the copper pair condensate itself becomes highly nonlinear. It's within this complex quantum environment that Pokletnov and subsequent theorists posit that an interaction with the gravitational field might occur. effectively bridging the gap between quantum mechanics and general relativity, the 1992 gravity shielding anomaly. This genesis of the controversy lies in the specific experimental setup at the Tampere University, originally designed not for gravity research but for the characterization of superconducting materials. The serendipitous nature of the discovery and the specific details of the apparatus are critical to understand why the replication has proven so difficult. So 2.1 Experimental Architecture and Material Science. The core of Pokletnov's apparatus was a massive superconducting toroidal disk. So the specifications of the disk are non-trivial, and they represent a significant materials engineering challenge even by modern standards. So this thing was toroidal, so it goes around in circles and like a bit like a smoke ring maybe, with an outer diameter of 275 millimeter, an inner diameter 80 millimeters, and a thickness of 10 millimeters. Its large volume was necessary to support the magnetic levitation and structural integrity under rotation. The material was ceramic oxide. Crucially, Pokletnov specified that the disc was not merely sintered, but fabricated using a melt texture growth technique. This process involves melting the ceramic and cooling it slowly under a thermal gradient to align the crystal grains. The thermal gradient the result is a quasi-single crystal structure with a high critical current density and long flux pinning capabilities. And you've got cryogenics, so they have to keep this shit really cold. The disc was housed within a specialized cryostat, submerged in liquid helium or nitrogen, maintaining temperatures below 70 Kelvin to ensure the superconducting state. The disc was levitated by the Meissner-Ochsenfeld effect, magnetic repulsion, using static solenoids located beneath the cryostat. The rotation was induced by an alternating current electromagnetic fields generator by driving solenoids positioned around the perimeter, effectively creating a superconducting induction motor capable of speeds of up to 5,000 revs per minute. So the observation of weight loss, right, according to Pokletnov's account given to Wired and his papers, the discovery occurred accidentally. So the researcher smoking a pipe in the laboratory, probably not crack, but noticed that the smoke rose in a coherent vertical column directly above the cryostat rather than dispersing turbulently as you might expect. He was quite intrigued, and the team placed a test mass, a 0.5, like you'd get a bit ripped off if you said it was a quarter and you got 0.548, you'd be like, what the fuck, blood? So 0.48 grams. And if it was a silicone sphere, you'd be fucking swinging jaws in it. But anyway, he's chosen to be non-magnetic and non-conductive to rule out the eddy currents. Don't just Google that. On a precision electro-optical balance suspended above a cryostat. Quantitative results, right? So the measurements reported in the 1992 Physica-C paper and subsequent 97 drafts detailed a complex interaction. Static effect, without rotation, the levitated superconducting disk reportedly induced a small weight loss in the sample, approximately 0.05%. Rotation enhancement, as the rotation speed of the disk increased, the weight loss of the sample increased. At the optimal speeds, about 5,000 revs per minute, the weight loss stabilized between 0.3 and 0.5. Again, if you've got a 0.3 for 40, you might be pissed off. I never have, but I mean, some people have. I've seen it's fucking scandalous. Instability and fluctuations. The transition was not smooth. Pokletnov reported that the disk accelerated. Sorry, I'm sort of slurring my words. I've just taken 2 lorazepam and I'm on clonazepam, so I'm a bit fucking sedated today. Anyway, the weight of these fucking samples and that fluctuated wildly, showing readings from like minus 2.5 to plus 5.4 of the initial weight, and that sort of suggests a resonant or chaotic interaction between the regime before the system settled into like a stable shielding state. That makes sense. Cylindrical geometry, right? The effect was described as a shielding cylinder extending vertically above the disk. And through the ceiling of the laboratory, the Reduction in weight was constant with height, so within the lab's limits, implying a collimated field or a shadow rather than a radial inverse square attenuation. So gravity shielding interpretation, right? So the Pokletnov interpreted, in his view, these results as being gravitational shielding. Essentially, the superconducting disk was modifying the local space-time metric or absorbing gravitons, thereby reducing the gravitational flux acting on the test mass. This interpretation, was explosive because it implied the violation of the equivalence principle, which basically states that gravity acts on all mass and energy equally. And it did suggest, on the other side of the coin, the possibility of our propellantless propulsion might work. So the table below summarises the claimed parameters in the 1992 experiment compared to the standard expectations. Just read that. I'll just hold that there. You can pause it because I can't be fucked to read all that shit. There you go. Oh, you play it again now. 2.4, immediate scientific reaction and controversy. The publication of these results and these subsequent leak to a more ambitious 1997 paper claiming up to 2% weight loss triggered a severe backlash. The scientific community largely reviewed the results as artifacts. Common rebuttals included air currents. So they said thermal convection from the cryostat acting on the balance pan could be right. Magnetic coupling, so interactions between the high magnetic fields up to 1 Tesla, nothing to do with Elon Musk or Nikola Tesla. Well, it is actually to do with Nikola Tesla. The paramagnetic impurities in the non-magnetic test mass or the balance mechanism itself. That sounds really boring, but just keep with me, you will find this interesting. So rectification of mechanical vibrations from the 5,000 RPM rotor causing zero shift in the delicate balance. So despite Pokletnov's insistence that he had controlled these factors using silicon masses and magnetic shielding, controversy led to his expulsion from the university and the effective end of his academic career in Finland, where they make Nokia phones, by the way, and not spaceships. However, the genie was out the bottle, and the reports attracted the attention of the defence contractors and space agencies worldwide. The plot thickens. Theoretical mechanisms. How could it work? If the Pokletnov effect is real, it requires new physics. Standard general relativity, or GR, allows for gravitomagnetism, the generation of gravitational fields by moving mass. But the magnitude is too small by dozens of orders of magnitude to explain a 0.5 weight loss. So several theoretical frameworks have been advanced to bridge this gap. Here's one of them: gravitomagnetism and the London movement. So in GR, that's general relativity, the linearized field equations for weak gravity resemble Maxwell's equations for electromagnetism. The rotating mass generates a gravitomagnetic field analogous to the magnetic field B. Classical prediction. So for a rotating disk of mass m and angular momentum j, the gravitomagnetic field is proportionate to something I don't understand. For a ceramic disk of a few kilograms, and this field is unmeasurably small, like my penis. The superconductor difference. Martin Tajmar, ESA, and Clovis de Matos hypothesized that in a superconductor, the constant constituent particles, Cooper pairs, you should probably know what they are. Again, you've got to Google, are in coherent macroscopic quantum state described by a single wave function. They proposed that the effective mass of the Cooper pairs could be vastly different from their classical mass, or that the coupling, the gravitational field, is enhanced by the breakdown of gauge symmetry in the superconductor. It's a bit complicated, I can't be able to explain that, but Google gauge symmetry. So just as a rotating superconductor generates a magnetic field proportional to its angular velocity, the London movement, Tajmar proposed it generates a gravitomagnetic London movement. So the theoretical formula proposed was where omega is angular velocity, and alpha is an enhancement factor derived from the properties of the vacuum or the condensate mass. This model predicted effects that could approach the magnitude of Earth's gravity, potentially like 1 gram, potentially explaining Pokletnov's observations. So, quantum vacuum fluctuations, a different approach was taken by Giovanni Modenese, an Italian theoretical physicist who collaborated directly with Pokletnov. Modenese focused on the interaction between the superconducting condensate and the zero-point field or quantum vacuum, sort of woo science, energy from the vacuum. I don't know, 369, Tesla drinks wine, fucking, maybe he's taking the piss, but I don't think he was. Vacuum modification, right? Modenese argued that local vacuum energy density is not constant, but can be modified by the presence of macroscopic quantum systems, the superconductor. So fluctuations in the Cooper pair density could couple anomalously to the gravitational field, yeah? So dipolar fluctuations. In this view, the semiconductor acts as a shutter or a modifier for the flux of vertical particles that constitute the vacuum. If gravity is an emergent force resulting from vacuum fluctuations, as proposed by Sakharov, if you want to fucking leave your girlfriend, fucking Sakharov, innit? Especially if she's selling you 0.3s for 40, then modifying the local vacuum spectrum would effectively modify local gravity. So this theory would allow for the creation of a repulsive force without requiring negative mass, but by the altering of momentum exchange with the vacuum. Here is the non-conservation of energy. So thermodynamics is talking about. So like Modenese noted that if the vacuum acts as a reservoir, the system might appear to violate energy conservation locally, while global conservation, including the vacuum, is maintained. This gets a bit spooky, this bit, right? So this chick called Ning Li and lattice spin alignment. So she worked at University of Alabama, proposed a mechanism distinct from Pokletnov's bulk rotation. Her theory, developed with Douglas Torr, focused on the spin of the lattice ions themselves, so alternated current gravity. So Lee argued that if the lattice ions in a superconductor could be aligned and set into rotation, spin coherently, they would generate a time-varying alternating current gravitomagnetic field, unlike static direct current fields. That's where Tesla comes into. AC fields can induce forces, alternating current. You've got an ion trap, right? So she viewed this superconducting lattice as a trap for ions. So if the ions spin and their superconductor is rotated, the combined angular momentum could create a gravitomagnetic dipole with the field strength dozens of orders of magnitude higher than the classical matter. This theoretical prediction was the basis for her later work with the Department of Defense. By the millennium, the focus on Pokletnov's research shifted dramatically away from the rotating disc, which was plagued by mechanical issues and stability problems, and he developed a new device. This was called the Impulse Gravity Generator, IGG. This device was claimed to produce a directed beam of gravitational force rather than a static shield, and that doesn't want to be weaponized. So the IGG setup, described in the 2001 ARXIV paper authorized by Modenese and subsequent leaks, is radically different from the 1992 experiment. So there's an emitter, an active element as a superconducting cathode, roughly 10 to 12 centimeters in diameter. Crucially, its composite bilayer structure. One layer is superconducting YBCO and the other is a non-superconducting normal phase of the same material. High voltage discharge. The device is powered by a Marx generator, a circuit used to generate high voltage pulses. The Pokletnov effect utilizes voltages ranging from 500 kilovolts to 2 millivolts. The discharge current peak exceeds 10,000 amperes. So vacuum discharge. The discharge occurs in a low pressure chamber arcing from the superconducting cathode to a metal anode. As they do, a solenoid surrounds the chamber, applying a static magnetic field up to 1 terahertz, I believe that stands for, to the emitter prior to the discharge. So this gravity beam thing, this discharge reportedly generates a short, very short pulse of a repulsive force that propagates axially from the cathode. I've got some drink some cold coffee and have a vape because I've got a dry mouth by there. Penetrating power, not pawning, not fluffing, nothing like that. The beam was reported to pass through steel plates, concrete walls and other barriers without attenuation, ruling out electromagnetic radiation or plasma effects. Mass proportionality, so the force exerted by the beam on a target, was found to be proportional to the target's mass. Not this surface area or electrical properties. This mass coupling is the unique signature of gravitational interaction. So distance was relevant. Effects were measured distances of 150 meters within the laboratory complex, and Pokletnov claimed in interviews to have detected the beam up to 1.2 kilometers away. So while the gravity shield reduced weight by milligrams, the IgG beam was powerful. It could knock over books, deflect pendulums significantly, and according to grey literature, vaporize material and punch holes in concrete at higher voltages, like 5 millivolts. Then you got this bit, right? It gets interesting. Measuring the speed of gravity. So a profound claim associated with the IgG is the measurement of the speed of gravity impulse. Standard general relativism, Einstein, gravitational waves travel at the speed of light, c. However, in a 2006-2012 series of experiments, Pokletnov and Modenese claimed to measure the beam's propagation speed using synchronized atomic clocks and laser pointers. So 2 sensors, piezoelectric or optical. Piezoelectric is like the clicky lighters that you get. They squeeze a piezoelectric crystal, it creates an electric charge. They were placed 1,211 meters apart. The time of flight of the impulse was measured. The result reported a delay 63 parts per million, 1 nanosecond. I don't understand what that means. For a distance of 1.2 kilometers, light would take 4,000 nanoseconds, so the calculated speed was approximately 64 times 300,000 kilometers a second. If it's true, that observation violates the local Lorentz invariance and suggests a non-local quantum interaction or a warp effect rather than a classical wave propagation. This claim makes the IgG results even more controversial than the original shielding claims. If you know about warp drives, you didn't hear it from me, right? Independent verification efforts, a history of ambiguity. The extraordinary nature of these claims compelled major scientific and military organizations to attempt replication. These efforts are characterized by a pattern of initial interest, technical struggle, ambiguous or null results, and eventual project termination, often with classified residues. NASA's Project Delta Marshall Space Flight Center. In the late 90s, NASA's MSFC launched a Project Delta to investigate propellantless propulsion with a specific focus on the Pokletnov rotating disk. The project involved researchers Ron Coxor, Tony Robertson and initially Ning Li. The fabrication barriers. The primary failure of the Project Delta was materials engineering. NASA contractors attempted to fabricate the large 12-inch YBCO discs required, but however they lacked the proprietary melt texture. So the protocol Pokletnov had used, he made them a bit differently. NASA's discs were often sintered like pressed powder, which yields a granular structure with a poor intergrain connectivity and lower critical density. Structural failures. A ceramic discs were brittle when spun to thousands of RPM. Many of NASA's prototype discs disintegrated or cracked or fucked off, and fucking centrifugal stress got them before any anti-gravity fucking shit happens, and that was that. They're shit and fucked it up, probably on purpose. Organisational friction, right? Internal narrative suggests friction between the gravity modification team and NASA management. So the project was officially terminated due to budget cuts, right? But the lack of demonstrable results was also factored in too. Robertson explicitly stated later that NASA never actually tested the superconductors they constructed in a replication of the rotating experiment, because they never achieved a stable rotating superconducting disk of the required quality. So sort of like a cover-up, really. The European Space Agency and some dude called Martin, the most significant, rigorous investigation conducted by Martin Tajmar at Ark Cybernsdorf, funded by the ESA and the US Air Force. In 2006, there was a breakthrough published in Class Quantum Grav, claiming to have detected the gravitomagnetic London movement using spinning niobium rings, which is like a classic superconductor, at liquid helium temperatures. He measured acceleration fields of roughly 100 mugs. I'm not a fucking mug, but I sound like one today, don't I? And this was hailed as the first independent confirmation of a superconductor gravity link. 2011 reaction. So someone continued to refine the experiment, upgrading the sensor isolation to eliminate vibration. In 2011, he published a paper titled "The Evaluation of Enhanced Frame Dragging in Superconductor Science and Technology." In his paper, he reported that with better vibration isolation, I can't fucking read without, I've lost it now. I've lost my fucking marbles. He reported that with better vibration isolation, the gravitational signal disappeared. So I haven't slept through the night in 18 months. He concluded that the 2006 results were likely acoustic noise artifacts and thermal errors, not a genuine gravitational effect. Then you got the IgG replication. They tried to do it, again attempted to do what Pokletnov did, but the discharge created a massive mechanical shock or a recoil, and he couldn't detect or remote the gravity beam using the isolated sensors. Again, it should be attributing positive readings to acoustic couplings. So then you've got this dude who's got these universons, right? So Dr. Claude Power, a French scientist and Formula CEO and NASA individual, conducted extensive replication of the IgG style discharge experiments, confirmations of recoil. So Power confirmed that discharging high currents into YBCO emitters produces a strong propulsive force, recoil, measuring momenta of up to 1 kilogram, which is a fucking lot. So the universons theory, Power interpreted this not as a gravity beam, but as an interaction with universons, which he basically invented hypothetical particles carrying cosmological momentum. While this theoretical framework is idiosyncratic and also bullshit, his experimental data supports the existence of an anomalous force generation mechanism in current superconductors, distinct from Lorentz forces, which you can Google at your leisure. So industrial efforts, Boeing and BAE were like, yeah, we'll have some of that. So Boeing started Project Grasp in 2002, Jane's Defence Weekly. I don't know who the fuck Jane is, but yeah. It leaked a Boeing internal briefing document, which probably wouldn't have happened by accident if they were doing this shit. It's probably just propaganda. But the document advocated for investigating Pokletnov's advice. So it said that they were doing it, noting its potential to alter the entire aerospace business, and noted that Pokletnov had refused to work with them on classified black projects, insisting on white world open research. So Boeing publicly denied the project's funding and the standard response for special access programs. BAE Systems, right? So they did another thing a bit like that. So they got Project Greenflow. They ran Project Greenflow in the UK, explicitly looked for gravity control. Under Ron Evans, they attempted to replicate Pokletnov's disk experiment at Sheffield University. Why Iron Man? The results were null, but the project report noted they could not perfectly replicate the melt textured disk structure. Then you got what happened this year. So the 2025 resurgence. So after a decade of relative dormancy from 12 to 22, Pokletnov's narrative has resurfaced with specific new claims in 2024 and 2025, which is pretty cool, isn't it? These ones are decent. These claims represent a maturation of the technology, moving from brute force discharges to high frequency resonance. So you add a 2025 experimental setup which had toroidal solenoids. According to recent interviews and reports, Pokletnov's current work, dubbed the 2025 experiment, involves a sophisticated electromagnetic topology. Toroidal solenoids, the device no longer relies on a simple rotating ceramic disc. Instead, it utilizes toroidal solenoids with complex windings. Bit more vape. This suggests that an engineering shift towards exploiting the Aharonov bomb effect or generating specific topological mechanical fields that do not leak externally but create high internal stress on the vacuum. Terahertz frequencies. The driving field operates in the terahertz range, which means it's hardcore. This is physically significant because terahertz radiation resonates with the phonon modes or lattice vibrations, if you want to call them that, of high temperature superconductors. This resonance could theoretically drive condensate into a highly non-equilibrium state required for anomalous coupling predicted by Maimonides. Levitation, that's what it's all about. Pokletnov claims this device can levitate several kilograms, durations of 15 to 20 seconds. The limitation is thermal. The device overheats and the quenches just the superconducting state's fucked. So you get this gravitational well interpretation. Pokletnov has refined his physical interpretation. He no longer describes the force of a simple push propulsion. Instead, he uses the language of metric engineering. So he said that falling into a well, he claims the device creates a localized gravitational well, a region of high space-time curvature above the aperture. Excuse me. The device and any payload effectively falls upwards into this artificial well. The implications of that, like distinctively, are the crucial sort of push with implication of a force field, which is Newtonian, while falling implies a metric modification of Einstein-Alcubierre drive. So this aligns with the 2025 claims that an advanced warp drive concept rather than classical anti-gravity. I don't talk about warp drives. So to visualize the evolution of these experiments, you've got to read this fucking boring synthesis of key parameters and shit about phases of pot. You just pause the video now, pause it, right, pause it, there, pause now, read it, right, you read it, sound, done. Sociological and institutional dynamics. The Pokletnov saga is as much about the sociology of science as it is about physics. Like, read that again. It highlights the sharp divide between mainstream academia and gravity underground. The black world connection. Persistent interest of the US DoD is a recurring theme. Ning Li's trajectory began as an academic publishing in Physical Review. After her theories gained attention, she founded alternating current gravity and received DoD funding, and then went dark. So her son's confirmation of her top secret clearance and work for the DoD until her death suggests that the US government saw merit in the technology that it didn't want to share publicly. They've had it since the end of the Second World War. So this is basically all obfuscatory bullshit, but it's interesting because it's like the only thing basically it's the best like bit of anti-gravity conspiracy theory you'll find. So Pokletnov has consistently claimed to be anti-military, refusing to work on classified projects for Boeing or the US government. This refusal to go black may explains why he still remains a public, albeit controversial figure, while Lee disappeared into the classified world. The replication trap. The field suffers from a replication trap. Pokletnov's specifications, mixed textured, specific bilayer interfaces, specific resonant frequencies, are so precise that any failed replication can be dismissed as not following the recipe. So then the no true Scotsman defense. I've no idea what that means. Leave me a comment. When NASA failed, it was because their discs were sintered, and they're not melt textured. So when Taj Mahal failed, it was because he used niobium, not YBCO, or the wrong geometry, and that makes the hypothesis difficult to falsify conclusively, which means it's not scientific, basically. So the complexity is a barrier. The sheer difficulty of building these devices requiring liquid helium, high vacuum megavolt electronics, and custom ceramic fabrication limits the pool of potential replicators to well-funded government labs who rarely publish negative results in detail, or idiosyncratic wealthy inventors. Here's a conclusion, guys. The verdict on the Pokletnov effect, even though they had anti-gravity and warp drives in the fucking 50s and cold fusion and shit, and yeah, but it says here, after more than 30 years of investigation, the Pokletnov effect remains a scientific enigma. There you go. It occupies a precarious position, widely rejected by the mainstream physics community due to the lack of model, yet persistently investigated by defence contractors and high-level researchers due to the tantalising potential of the data. Summary of findings: no definitive proof. There's no university accepted peer-reviewed experimental proof of the Pokletnov effect. The most rigorous and independent attempts by that Taj Mahal dude ended in a retraction of the gravitational claim, attributing results to acoustic noise, valid anomalies. The null results are often qualified, so NASA never successfully built the correct test article. They did confirm strong mechanical recoil effects in discharging superconductors, which remains an anomaly worth investigating. So there's like a crumb of weed there, but even if it's not anti-gravity in the sci-fi sense, theoretical viability, right? So while classical general relativity forbids the effect, modern extensions of physics, quantum gravity, vacuum physics allow for such interactions. The gravito-magnetic London movement, the vacuum polarization theories provide a mathematical language for these effects, suggesting they are not possible just requiring the conditions we do not yet fully understand or control. Future outlook: 2025 shift to terahertz frequencies and toroidal topology bullshit represents a logical evolution, or just maybe some Pied Piper trying to lead the world up the fucking wrong path because they don't want us to argue over fucking books and blow each other to bits. If the mechanism relies on driving quantum condensates into resonance with the vacuum, then high frequency simulation, as opposed to mechanical rotation, is the correct path. Ultimately, the Pokletnov effect serves as a reminder of the limits of our current understanding of the coupling between the quantum world and the fabric of space-time. Whether it represents a technological breakthrough or a persistent measurement error, the pursuit of this anomaly has pushed boundaries of cryogenic instrumentation and theoretical physics unit until a definitive open source demonstration, like the levitation of a kilogram of mass in a transparent, independent laboratory, is achieved. The Pokletnov effect will remain the Ghost in the Machine of modern physics. Here's some shitty references. You can fucking screenshot all that shit. I can't be fucked. I'm going to put it back onto the camera, and I'll probably have a bit of battery left now so I can show my beautiful face. Look how good looking I am. Look, look, look. See? Anyway, I'm in this room. I've got these speakers, monitor speakers, but my phone doesn't have a fucking aux cable. Getting one on Amazon tomorrow. And I've got really bad muscle stiffness in these new meds. It doesn't like it at all. Here's me in the mirror. I hope you have a lovely day. And, you know, if you like that Lenny Kravitz song, I Want to Fly Away, maybe you could listen to that when you explain this conspiracy bullshit to your skeptical partner or friend or, you know, confidant. And I've got loads of dirty washing on the floor. My fucking room's a mess, and I'm just fucking really depressed. A lot of shit, but I've made you a nice video, so watch that. And thanks for tuning in and that. Yeah, nice one. Yeah, love you. Bye.